Guys, I talk to a lot of people every single day in crypto. It's my job after all. I talk to people like you and I, retail. I talk to entire project founders, and I even talk to venture capitalists, the guys who, of course, play with billions of dollars every day for their own investors, right? And from what I've gathered so far, the general consensus in the retail market is that we're in a bear market. At least most people think that. Less than 20% believe we've got a good fighting chance of a bull run. Now, why this is interesting to talk about here and why I don't think many of us, retail, are prepared is because the project founders and the VCs are gearing up for a monumental, a parabolic, a glorious next 12 months, whereas most of us are either underprepared or just simply flat out think we're in a bear market. Now, I don't want to just touch on the sentiment and the general market outlook in this video. I want to discuss altcoins. And if you do believe the bull run's still here, based on what I talked about at the start of this video, what you can do with your own altcoins to either rebalance or just ensure you're in the right coins now before this next massive push up. Before we get into it, guys, do not forget, hit a like on the video if you find yourself enjoying it, and make sure you're subscribed, especially if you believe a bull run's coming. I want to start off with this particular quote here that Lark Davis put up. A little innocent kid saying, "Mum, why can we afford this nice house? Why can we afford the Rolls Royce outside?" And the mum says, "Because your father was willing to take a risk." Now, I'm not here saying, hey, go mortgage your house and throw everything in crypto. That's a different kind of risk. That's just stupidity, in my opinion. But if you do believe that the bull run's going to happen and you do agree with a lot of the sentiment and the charts I'm about to show you now, then of course it makes sense to be adequately risk on in the market at this current point, because the upside, I believe, far outweighs, hopefully, the money you've put in, right? The risk, essentially. As they say, when in doubt, zoom out. Raoul Pal may be the king of this very theory, okay? He's the macro man himself, and he shared this chart today with Bitcoin's price action. Just pretty much drew a line of support resistance across from the previous all-time high. And would you know it doesn't look all that doom and gloom when you have a look at it from this zoomed out perspective. This doesn't have a confirmation as to what's definitely going to happen next, but so many people calling for a bear market right now just based on the fact that we're at all-time highs and Bitcoin can't break above 100K and maintain that. I think it's just kidding yourselves. There's plenty of other things happening in the market right now that I believe are just massive bullish catalysts. I'll list a few more here in a second. But Marty Party shared a great bit of news recently with Van Eck, his subsidiary Market Vector, launching MAGA 10, which is a whole bunch of altcoins made in the USA. Okay, this is one of the many things that institutions are now being involved with crypto. This is a massive step. Had this had come out at any time in the past, single-handedly would have been a great bit of news. But as it stands right now, amongst the massive sea of just overwhelming bullishness, just because sentiment is low right now, it's washed away. What do you think all of this will mean when eventually the market starts pushing up? It's going to be used for fuel to make you get FOMO for exit liquidity. One of the key charts I'm looking at myself here is the ETH dominance versus Bitcoin dominance. Now, ETH dominance is in purple, Bitcoin is in orange, and in my opinion, this is a fantastic chart because what we're waiting for here is the snap, the inverse where Ethereum dominance goes up and above, Bitcoin's breaks away and Bitcoin's goes down. All this means is that essentially money flows out of Bitcoin, flows into Ethereum, and then from Ethereum, as we all know, eventually alt season starts soon after that. But right now, we're waiting for Ethereum. We're like, come on, Ethereum, do something, right? Bitcoin's taken the show. Because, most people have been saying to me, Kyron, it's annoying because Bitcoin's gaining dominance against alts. Alts have been constantly bleeding market cap into Bitcoin. And it's true. I mean, this chart here shows it, right? But what you don't understand is this actually needed to happen because Bitcoin's dominance started down here. And for us to flip into any kind of bull run alt season, bull run here is in this green zone. Essentially, Bitcoin's dominance had to be on top of Ethereum's. Okay, and Ethereum's down here. This sort of gradual move up and this gradual move down from Ethereum and therefore alt as well had to come because if Bitcoin had stayed the course down beneath Ethereum and Ethereum had stayed up here, when it eventually did snap, what does that mean? That means we're actually not going into alt season. That means the worst is happening where Bitcoin's gaining dominance, and that means it really is Bitcoin season, right? And this usually happens here by this dotted line about March/April of the last 12 months of the bull, which we're in right now. So we've got a few more months to still go before this happens. If this happens beforehand, great. If this happens a little bit after, great. As it stands right now, I think things are playing out just fine. Again, if it wasn't playing out as it has been the last few years, then it'd be a bit weird. Also, the social metric here shared by Ben Cohen looks to be at lows, which is of course great, because when things are low, there's only one real way they can move, and that's up from there. And of course, when sentiment goes up, when people are going to themselves, I'm going to take more of a risk here, this will spike, of course, signaling the start of the bull run. And as we of course know, this is a great sentiment gauger as well. What's retail doing with Bitcoin? Are retail buying or selling? If retail, people like you and I, are selling, chances are the market's pretty bearish. If we're buying, chances are it's a little too bullish, and that means that, the best is coming or the best has already been. You can see here we've been selling in droves, while large investors in this pink line have been buying and buying. Large investors are what you should be doing to actually trying to emulate. If they're buying, you should buy. If they sell, you should probably want to start de-risking and selling as well. Back in the 2018 cycle, and I'm bringing this up not to 2021 because I believe we are more akin to this than we are of the 2021 cycle, obviously. Retail was selling off in droves right next to my head over here. I'll kind of shuffle across for you. You can see here, while large investors were buying in the panic, and then large investors, of course, sold off towards the top, whilst, of course, retail began to buy. It's as old as time itself, right? Trick the mass population to do the opposite of what we're doing. That way we can buy cheaper, or make sure that we actually can exit, because there needs to be liquidity. Otherwise, we can't exit. I shared this a while back now. All the bullish catalysts, we've got charts, general catalysts involved, like Trump and the administration, adoption in general institutions being on board, global liquidity is even going up at the moment. We've got financial inclusion, banks can custody crypto and not call it liabilities, which of course unlocks a whole host of possibilities. MasterCard tokenized like 30% of all their transactions last year. And we have, of course, again, that US administration. So the only bearishness I'm seeing right now is mainly sentiment and QT. Now, specifically about QT, I'll talk about this in just a moment here. But regarding sentiment, this thing ebbs and flows. And when sentiment is actually negative, this should be flipped as a bullish case, because as most of you should know, as any good investor really does, when people are overly bearish, that's always a good time to buy. When they're bullish, that should be when you're selling. There's always someone behind the curtain pulling the strings to make the mass market overly bullish or overly bearish, and that's for a reason. But I particularly love this post here from Crypto Dove, and he said people don't get into crypto to sell and watch the market. These sellers won't stay away for long. So I'm just pointing this out, and I want to give you an example here, because those of you who are selling right now with very little to no of your own research on the current state of the crypto market, and it's more so just a feeling. You feel like things aren't moving, you want to get out, you're an emotional investor. It's not a bad thing entirely, you're human, okay? But what happens here is this is a part of the whale's game. What they're trying to do, and by the way, do your own thing, don't just take my information and go with it, do your own research. They're trying to fear you out of the market, out of your positions, because right now, you're in the market to probably make some decent multiples. But if you sell, you're emotionally connected to the prices now. So when you see altcoins go 10, 20, 30% up in a week or in a day, you now have that mental confirmation that the bull run's back on, I better get back in again. So even if you sold at a loss and you're actually very frustrated, you have a vengeance to want to make that money back, don't you? So then you come back into the market, even if it is multiples higher than what your previous averages were, you just want exposure. What happens then, of course, is that your expectation of your multiple stays the same. You want that 10x still as you did back here at half the average buy price you have now. And of course, maybe that may mean you never actually end up getting out. All the while, I'm over here out probably 2x before you even consider possibly getting out. 9 times out of 10, I can't say for certain that this is what's going to happen right now. Usually it's whales manipulating your emotions, because that's how they make their money. One thing people are bringing up is this. Mark Moss, someone who I actually respect quite a lot, he's a great YouTuber, but I think he's way wrong with this. So is everyone else pushing this as another narrative. These influencers are pushing so many negative narratives that they haven't actually done any research on. They just push it because the previous guy said it was important. About how the deep coupling of Bitcoin to altcoins is working, where you can see this black line here is altcoins, this gold line is Bitcoin's market cap, and Bitcoin's pushed up and altcoins haven't followed. Well, guess what? If you do just a little bit of research, this took me 2 minutes. You can see here, this is a total 2 market cap. So this is every single cryptocurrency's market cap, excluding Bitcoin primarily, right? And you can see here that Bitcoin actually went up in periods in the last cycle, like 60%, 140%. So basically a 2.5x here, whilst the general market for altcoins, including Ethereum, was pretty much either not the same or stagnant. This went up about 5, 6%? Nothing. Bitcoin went up 10 times that. Over here, 30%. Bitcoin went up again at 2.5x. But then, alt started to catch up. This decoupling doesn't last long. Why? Because the decoupling is created from the initial interest in Bitcoin. If I was going to write a book on how this market works, this is like 101 stuff. Okay? Bitcoin gets interest. We don't have new money in the space without that initial interest in Bitcoin. Then it goes into ETH. Sometimes it bypasses ETH and goes straight into altcoins. Now, we have the stone-walled problem right now where we have the ETS, but guys, I'd rather the ETS be here than not be here, because what this creates is more validity for the asset class in general, even if none of the people that buy the ETS, which won't happen, but even if none of the people that buy the ETS, literally 0%, look to then put this money on a centralized exchange and buy ETH or altcoins, it doesn't matter. Why? Because other people are coming in going, well, there's ETFs, there's people buying the ETFs, there's help pushing the price up. I'm going to come and I'm going to buy some, Fed or Render or Ondo on the open market. It's not a negative. It is most definitely a positive, even if there is no conversion from ETF into holdings on centralized exchanges. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I'm getting carried away here. The point being is that, of course, things lag, and you can see eventually Bitcoin slows down from open to close of a particular season while alts begin to pick up, even Bitcoin going down from open to close of that season, particularly whilst alts have a massive run here of about 4x. Okay, so it works a bit differently, and yes, there are lags, but as I said, it's designed to be that way. So what about QT? Quantitative tightening seems to be the one major reason for people to be bearish on this market. And might I say, QT's been going on for some time now, ever since those bank closures and the whole FTX debacle back in the previous cycle. So it was pretty much the bear market lows, as you can see here. And even in the QT madness and this bearishness, people have beginning to claim now, with 5.5x Bitcoin's price. Yes, we've gone up 5.5x from here, pretty much when it started. So even in QT, we've begun to go up at a time when people seem to say, well, Kyron, this is the sole reason why we won't have a bullish next 12 months. And I guess history can answer that question for you. But needless to say, we've never had a bull run before with completely quantitative tightening. So there is a case to be made. Look, I don't want to be completely, blinders on, like, hey, ignore QT entirely. We just don't know. I've kind of pulled over the last 3 bull runs here, this bull run, and this bull run with the colored zones. The blue period, of course, is the lead up before the last 12 months, and green is the last 12 months, which is always the mass euphoria part of the bull run. As you can see, we've just started entering that right now. I wanted to kind of show you guys with these colored zones over the Fed's balance sheets, because this kind of gives you some idea of what could happen next. So back in the first cycle here, you can see that in the blue zone, we were pretty much neutral. And then in the last 12 months, we essentially had some form of QE, right? The Fed was buying stuff. And then we had over here in the 2016 to 2018 cycle, which I believe are more akin to, we had neutral in both circumstances. We still went up quite a lot. We still gained 330 billion market cap. Bitcoin went up 2x in the first 12 months, and then a 20x to follow in the last 12 months. And then we had, of course, the last cycle. We had COVID. COVID really shook things up, and here's why. We had, of course, QE, and we had the Fed essentially just buying up everything it pretty much could in the blue zone, which is why I do think that the blue zone here had, on average, more multiples than the 2 previous cycles, okay? It was the largest cycle to date, and we had the most bullishness blue part of the cycle we ever had. Now, in my opinion, that caused the green zone to be a bit lackluster. A lot of the stimulation from COVID came in and people were locked down. That caused that initial surge up. That's why I think we double topped. And of course, just simply made that last, 12 months less bullish. I still think a pretty good 2.5x on Bitcoin's price was not bad at the time. And then we fast forward to today. Now, in my opinion, I think the last 12 months we've just gone through now of the bull run has been quite normal. Pretty much what we expected in the 2 previous cycles before 2021. Again, this was a very abnormal bull run, all right, because of, this. Right now, as it stands, we've still 2x Bitcoin's price as the Fed has begun to sell off. Now, again, there's speculation and there's rumors that we're going to flip into a QE here soon, but I don't really care. I think what I've pretty much been told so far is the top of the rapid selling is likely completed. And this is a hunch, by the way. You don't have to believe what I'm saying here. You can do your own research. But my hunch is that things are going to be tapering off here, as you can see, it's kind of doing now over the next 12 months. I don't think we'll rapidly begin buying again, but anything could happen. Either way, I think as we begin to taper off, what happens is a typical bull run does occur, kind of like what happened back over here, where that first 12 months, that blue zone tends to be the shorter multiples, okay? Not like the dominant like in the previous. And what this means is I think we can expect a more than 2x or roughly 2x multiple in the green zone. Again, it does depend here. Maybe the Fed begins to rapidly sell off. I'm not entirely sure. But given that we've been in QT and already 2x in the blue zone, again, I think we're more like this. And if we actually have a look at how much market cap we've gained in just simply the last 12 months versus how much the whole previous cycle gained from the blue zone to the end of the green zone, it's pretty much the same, only a measly 33% gain. So when you're talking about Bitcoin having institutions in now, having people like entire nations involved with ETFs, indexes for altcoins, and all the rest of it, I do not see a case where Bitcoin, particularly as the numbers just showed, has sort of a bull run where we only have a 33% gain in market cap. I mean, it's a lot different to the previous cycle. We have so many more bullish catalysts, especially if we see QT beginning to slow down, maybe a flip into QE, global liquidity continuing. I mean, there is so much behind this cycle. That's just my analysis and opinion, I guess, on the situation. So what about altcoins? Well, I think it's a very important time right now to go, okay, if you believe the bull run's going to happen, of course, the bull run's going to come in, but let's just assume the worst. Let's assume it happens, but only the best altcoins survive. Well, how do we pick the best? Well, I do think that this is a good and integral time to like hedge into the better altcoin. So I'm going to show you what to look out for here. And I think a lot of it is built around this chart. Now, I don't agree on everything Murad posts. As a matter of fact, I disagree with most of it. But me and him share a lot of similarities with finding the coins that have the communities. Crypto is not a point right now where anything is based on true utility. We buy utility coins, yes, but the true utility isn't actually really in place. It's speculative utility. And this also applies then because when people have that same train of thought, hey, Hedera's HBAR token, it's used for all of these reasons. I'm going to buy HBAR because of that. Well, we've seen in the past that HBAR's had consistent 2000 TPS and there hasn't been any buy pressure, right? So what actually happens here is this more so creates a floor, a psychological floor for people to go, okay, well, at least if the price falls, I've got a reason to hold on to the coin. It'll go up in the future. It is speculative for every single altcoin, I think, maybe apart from Ethereum at the moment, even maybe ETH, right? And so it applies for meme coins as well. Now, he shared this chart, and for the most part, we're at a point, I think, right now where the true utility coins, the true coins that will do the best, separate themselves because they have cults, they have communities, versus the ones that he uses the word trenches here, but essentially the ones that are just promising good utility, right? So once you guys try to think about finding the coins that are building communities, they're like meme coins. Utility coins are like meme coins in the sense that it's all built around a community, a cult, so to speak. Also find the coins that have held onto a community, okay, the ones that ignore and push away a community are the dangerous ones. Alive with evangelists. Evangelists are people who will always support the coin no matter what, and also ideally working with a community. For example, Ondo here. Ondo's had great engagements. You can see across all platforms. It's actually been increasing even in this downtime. And we just recently launched a community page. I'll leave the link down below, guys. Go forward. If you are an Ondo fan, you want to be following this community page. We're going to have some great updates. But again, they don't really need this. But the community page itself will provide so much additional community focus and, answering questions and coming to terms with FUD and all the rest of it. And that's what you need at a time like this. Injective is probably one of the best examples. High engagements, roughly speaking, averaging 1 million still. They have the Injective Hub with 30,000 followers. So this is just constant marketing. This keeps the people at peace, calm, maybe even makes them more bullish and maybe turning them into an evangelist. Wormhole, not a great amount of engagements, a lot less than the previous two, but they do have an ecosystem page of 60,000 followers, and there is a bit of buzz around the project now. It's beginning to heat up. Render is a great example of a coin that doesn't actually have a community page, but there are a plethora of great creators that are consistent with this, and you can go to Luna Crush, click top creators, and just go through here and have a look at some of the guys constantly pushing Render. Render's got, again, one of the biggest communities on Twitter of great content. I mean, these guys are phenomenal. Now, the next thing is upgrades, announcements, and partnerships, otherwise known as catalysts. I call them catalysts at least, right? Now, this is crucial. The more a coin is focused on building, especially towards the major narratives, the better. Essentially, what it's doing is creating a magnet for money when retail comes back. I believe retail will come back 100%. A perfect example, again, is Injective. No, I'm not sponsored by Injective. Yes, I own the coin. I own the coin for these obvious reasons. It wouldn't make sense if I was telling you this and not putting my money where my mouth is. Or of course I own the coin. Okay, so you can see they're constantly upgrading partnerships and they're pushing towards real-world assets, AI agents. They know what they're doing, okay? Which is exactly why you want to find coins that are in the top narratives as well. I've outlined these all here. You can see that, Injective's right in the middle next to Chainlink as well. Even the ones that just mainly focus on one specific thing. That's okay as well. But I do believe the two major narratives, or technically three of the bull run, AI, DePIN, and real-world assets. Some hypercoins hit both. Chainlink, for example, Injective, Hedera. Some coins do their hypercoins. Some just hit one and an additional narrative, but that's also very good. Like I said, even if they hit one of these two or three major narratives, that's the most important thing because this is where most of the money will flow to, I believe, in this bull run. Another great example is Render. Render's pushing heavily into the AI space with their AI agent scouts. Okay, so they just know where the money's coming. Wormhole, again working here with Securitize and therefore Apollo to tokenize $1.3 billion across many different networks. The list goes on. Like I spend all day in this chair. You don't have to listen to me based on tokenomics and research and sentiment and announcements like catalysts and narratives and the meme. Like all this stuff goes into crypto, guys. And I really suggest you buckle down and try to learn as much as you can. If you believe the bull run's happening, position yourself in some of these top altcoins just to be safe. And just wait. Patience is key in this market because that is what they're relying on you not to have. If you're emotional, they're winning. I'll talk to you guys later. All the best for 2025. Peace.